You have been loved in silence for far too long. And tonight, that silence ends, because heaven is about to reveal a name you have been almost afraid to hope for. This is not wishful thinking. This is not something your heart invented out of loneliness. Somewhere, someone has been carrying a love for you so deep, so quiet, so carefully guarded, that you have felt only fragments of it without ever seeing the whole truth. You have sensed it in moments you could not explain, a hesitation in their voice, a look that lasted half a second too long, a closeness that felt like more than friendship but never fully announced itself. You told yourself you imagined it. You told yourself you were reading too much into nothing, but you were not imagining it. You were sensing something real, something being protected, something heaven is finally ready to bring out of hiding tonight. Think about every time you felt that strange, unexplainable pull towards someone who never quite said what you needed them to say. Think about the conversations that lingered a little longer than they needed to, the silences that felt comfortable rather than awkward, the small gestures of care that seemed to mean more than casual kindness ever should. Maybe it was the way they remembered something small you mentioned once and never repeated. Maybe it was the way they always seemed to notice when something was wrong with you before you said a word about it. Maybe it was the message that arrived at exactly the right moment, or the one that never quite got sent even though you could somehow sense it had been written. You noticed. Some quiet part of you has always noticed, even when your mind talked you out of trusting it. That is because love that is real, even hidden love, even silent love, leaves traces. It cannot completely disappear no matter how carefully someone tries to conceal it. It leaks through their eyes, their tone, their timing, their inability to fully walk away even when distance would have been easier. You have been living inside those traces for longer than you realized, wondering if you were foolish for noticing them at all. You were not foolish. You were paying attention to something real. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from loving someone in silence, whether you have been the one carrying it or sensing it from someone else. It is the exhaustion of interpreting every glance, every pause, every unanswered question, searching for meaning in things that were never explained outright. You have replayed conversations at night, wondering if you misread the moment or if you finally understood it correctly for the first time. You have told yourself 100 different stories, some hopeful, some doubtful, trying to settle on which one was actually true. That exhausting, quiet searching is about to come to an end because heaven does not keep hearts waiting in confusion forever. There comes a point where the truth simply has to be revealed, not because you demanded it, but because it has finished the work it needed to do in silence. If any part of what I just said feels like it is describing your exact life right now, comment the word 777 as your declaration that you are ready to receive what is being revealed tonight. Like this message before you continue watching. Subscribe now so that you do not miss what comes next, because what I am about to show you is the reason this person has stayed silent for so long, and once you understand it, you will never see their silence the same way again. There is a story of a man named Joseph who spent years hidden behind a different identity, standing in front of his own brothers without revealing who he truly was. He watched them, tested them, waited for the right moment, carrying the truth of his identity quietly while they had no idea they were standing in front of someone who loved them enough to have already forgiven them completely. When the moment finally came, he could not hold it back any longer. He sent everyone else out of the room, and with tears he could no longer restrain, he said the words that changed everything. "I am your brother." 4 words. Years of silence collapsing into a single sentence that reshaped an entire family's future. This is the same pattern unfolding in your life right now. Someone has been standing closer to you than you realized, carrying a truth they were not yet ready or able to say, waiting for the exact right moment to finally let it be known. The silence was never emptiness. It was restraint. It was timing. It was love being protected until it could be safely revealed. Silence, when it comes from someone who truly loves you, is rarely indifference. It is far more often fear, the fear of losing what little closeness they already have by saying too much too soon. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of a love this significant slipping away before it ever gets the chance to be spoken. A person who does not love you does not agonize over how to tell you. They simply do not think about you enough to feel that tension. But someone who has been loving you in silence has replayed 100 different versions of the conversation they have never had the courage to start. They have typed messages they never sent. They have rehearsed words that never made it past their own thoughts. They have stood close enough to tell you everything and then said nothing at all. Not because they did not care, but because they cared so much that the fear of ruining it outweighed, for a long time, the ache of staying quiet. Think about how much energy it actually takes to hide something this significant for this long. It is far easier to walk away from someone you do not care about than to stay close while constantly restraining yourself from saying what you truly feel. The exhaustion of that restraint is its own kind of proof. Indifference requires no effort to maintain. Hidden love requires enormous effort every single day to keep contained. If someone has stayed this close, this consistent, this quietly present, while clearly working to hold something back, that effort itself is a language, even without a single word spoken plainly. There is a thinker who wrote extensively about the nature of love, and one of his central observations was that to genuinely love another person always means accepting the risk of being wounded by that love. He believed that guarding your heart so completely that nothing can ever touch it does not protect you. It simply leaves you sealed away, safe but empty, untouched but also untouched by anything meaningful. He believed real love always requires a kind of surrender, a willingness to be exposed, and that this exposure is precisely what makes love valuable rather than something to avoid. This is exactly what has been happening on the other side of this silence. Someone has been standing at the edge of that exact kind of surrender, terrified of what it might cost them, and yet unable to fully retreat from it either. Their silence has not been the absence of love. It has been love standing at the doorway, hand raised, still deciding whether it is finally safe enough to knock. Now here is what most people never understand about a silence this long. It is not simply the result of fear. It is often the result of timing that was not yet right, circumstances that had not yet aligned, healing that had not yet finished happening in one or both of you. Heaven does not typically reveal a name before both hearts are ready to receive what that revelation will require of them. If this person had spoken too early, before certain wounds were healed, before certain lessons were learned, before certain seasons had run their full course, the outcome might have collapsed under the weight of unreadiness. So the silence, as painful as it has felt, has actually been doing something important. It has been buying time for both of you to become who you needed to become before this truth could finally be spoken, without fear of it falling apart the moment it was said out loud. Consider how this has played out before in stories far older than either of you. A woman named Esther kept the truth of her identity hidden for years, not because she was ashamed of it, but because the timing for revealing it had not yet arrived. She waited, she prepared, she positioned herself with patience most people could not sustain. And when the moment finally came for the truth to be spoken, her courage in that single moment changed the fate of an entire nation. Her silence was never weakness. It was strategy, patience, and trust that the right moment would eventually present itself. And when it did, she did not hesitate. This is worth remembering whenever you feel frustrated by how long this silence has lasted. What is being prepared behind the scenes is rarely wasted time, even when it feels that way in the middle of it. There is another story worth remembering here. Older still, about a man who wrestled through an entire night with a presence he could not fully see, refusing to let go until he received a blessing he could not yet name. When morning finally came, he was given a new name entirely, a name that marked him forever, a name that could only be received after that long, exhausting night of struggle. He became someone new, not in a moment of ease, but in a moment of relentless holding on, refusing to release his grip even when everything in him was tired enough to quit. Perhaps this silence you have been enduring has felt like your own version of that long night, a wrestling match with doubt, with fear, with the ache of not knowing, refusing to let go of hope even when logic suggested you probably should. If that describes you, take heart. The stories that end in a name finally being spoken almost always begin with a long night that tested whether the hoping heart would hold on until morning. There is one more sign worth paying close attention to, one that most people overlook because it does not look dramatic enough to notice. It is the sign of your own growing peace. If you have found that, even without answers, even without the name being spoken, you have slowly become more settled, less desperate, less consumed by the need to know right this moment, that shift within you is itself evidence that something is aligning correctly. Desperation usually grows when something false is being chased. Peace usually grows when something true is quietly approaching. Pay attention to which one has been increasing in you lately, because it may be telling you more than any single outward sign ever could. But discernment matters here, and it would be dishonest to tell you that every silence is love in disguise. There are ways to tell the difference between someone quietly protecting a real connection and someone who is simply distant, disinterested, or unavailable in ways that will never change no matter how much patience you offer. The first test is consistency. Someone loving you in silence still shows up. They may not say the words, but their presence remains steady, Their effort continues in small, quiet ways. Their attention toward you does not vanish for long stretches without explanation. The second test is discomfort. Watch how they behave when someone else shows interest in you. Genuine hidden love rarely stays completely calm in those moments. There is a flicker, a shift, something that betrays feelings words have not yet confirmed. The third test is memory. Someone who truly carries you in their heart remembers details most people forget. Small things you mentioned once in passing, preferences you never repeated, moments you assumed they had overlooked. They will bring up something from months ago as though it happened yesterday, proof that they were not simply listening politely, but actually holding on to pieces of who you are. And the fourth test is effort under pressure. When life gets complicated, when distance grows, when circumstances make closeness inconvenient, someone who loves you in silence still finds a way to remain present in some form, even if it is smaller than you wish it were. They do not disappear the moment things become difficult. They adjust, they persist, they find quiet ways to stay connected even when the easy thing would have been to simply let go. There is a fifth test worth mentioning as well, and it is perhaps the most telling of all. It is the test of protection. Someone who genuinely loves you in silence tends to guard your dignity even while saying nothing about their feelings. They do not gossip about you carelessly. They do not let others speak poorly of you in their presence without at least some quiet discomfort. They handle what you have shared with them, even casually, as though it matters, as though you matter, even when they have never said so directly. Watch for this quiet protectiveness. It often speaks louder than words ever could, revealing a depth of care that fear alone has kept from being fully spoken. If none of these signs are present, if the silence is simply emptiness rather than restraint, it is important to be honest with yourself about that too, because you deserve a love that eventually finds the courage to speak, not one that hides forever behind excuses. Silence without any of these underlying signs is not mystery. It is simply absence. And absence, however painful to admit, is still an answer, just not the one you were hoping to hear. But if these signs are present, if you have felt this quiet consistency, this subtle protectiveness, this inability to fully disappear no matter how complicated things have become, then what you have been sensing is very likely exactly what your spirit has been telling you it is. If you have made it this far, that is not by accident. Something in you needed to hear this exact message tonight, and heaven timed it precisely for this moment in your life. Comment the name that has been resting quietly in your heart, even if you can only bring yourself to type the first letter. If speaking it out loud, even in text, feels too vulnerable right now, comment the word ready instead, because sometimes readiness is the bravest declaration a guarded heart can make. Like this message, if any part of it has already felt like it was written about your exact situation, because it was. There is a reason this particular silence as long as it has, and understanding that reason will change how you carry the next chapter of this story. For some of you, the silence has been protecting a connection that is preparing to become a covenant. Something built to last, something requiring both of you to first become whole individually before you could ever become whole together. A love built on two incomplete people trying to complete each other rarely survives, but a love built on two people who have already done their own healing tends to last through nearly anything life brings against it. That is what this silence has quietly been building toward. For others, the silence has been part of a larger process of healing, allowing wounds from the past, whether yours or theirs, to close fully before either of you attempted to build something new on top of something still fragile. It is difficult to receive a genuine love when you are still bleeding from the last one that ended badly, and heaven often waits until that bleeding has stopped before allowing a new name to fully step forward. For some, this silence has been teaching you patience and self-worth in ways nothing else could have taught you, strengthening you into someone who no longer needs constant reassurance in order to feel secure, someone who can receive love from a place of wholeness rather than desperation. And for others, the silence has simply been waiting on circumstances outside anyone's control, timing tied to seasons of life, responsibilities, relocations, or transitions that had to resolve themselves first, before two lives could realistically move closer together. Sometimes the delay has nothing to do with fear or doubt at all, and everything to do with practical realities that simply needed time to unfold in their own way. Whatever the reason, know this: nothing this persistent, this quiet, this carefully protected, exists without purpose. A silence maintained this long, through this much internal struggle, is never accidental. It is evidence of how much this connection actually matters, because indifference does not require this much effort to maintain. While the name is being prepared to finally step into the light, there are things you can do that will help you meet that moment with strength rather than desperation. The first is to keep healing whatever in you still fears being truly seen. A silence this long can quietly convince you that you are unworthy of being loved out loud, and that lie needs to be confronted before the truth arrives to replace it. The second is to keep living fully rather than pausing your life to wait for a single reveal. A love worth having will never require you to shrink your own life down to the size of your waiting. Keep pursuing your goals, keep nurturing your friendships, keep growing into the fullest version of yourself, because that growth is not wasted time. It is the very thing that will make you ready when the moment finally comes. The third is to release the need to force the timing. Trying to pull the truth out of someone before they are ready rarely produces the outcome you are hoping for. It usually produces retreat instead of revelation. Patience, as difficult as it feels, protects the very thing you are hoping to receive. The fourth is to stay open rather than building walls in response to the silence. It is tempting to protect yourself by closing off completely. But a heart sealed shut cannot receive good news any more easily than it can avoid painful news. Guarding yourself too aggressively can accidentally block the very blessing you are waiting to receive. And the fifth is to trust that heaven's timing, though it may feel unbearably slow from where you are standing, has never once been late for anyone who remained faithful through the waiting. Every story of a name finally being revealed has, at some point, felt exactly like this: uncertain, drawn out, and difficult to endure. And every one of those stories eventually reached the moment where the waiting made perfect sense. Something is shifting right now, and if you pay close attention, you can feel it even as you listen to this. The atmosphere around this connection has changed. The hesitation you have grown used to feels different lately, thinner somehow, as though it is being worn down by something stronger than fear. You have noticed small changes, haven't you? A little more boldness in the way they look at you. A little less retreat after moments of closeness. A conversation that almost went somewhere it never had before. These are not accidents. They are the final movements of a silence that is preparing to break. Silence this long does not simply continue forever without end. Eventually, the weight of carrying an unspoken truth becomes heavier than the fear of finally speaking it, and that tipping point is closer than you think. Tonight carries a particular weight to it, a particular readiness. Whatever has been building quietly beneath the surface is reaching the point where it can no longer stay hidden without cost. The name you have been sensing, the person you have quietly hoped was feeling what you are feeling, is closer to being fully revealed than at any point before this moment. You will not need convincing when it happens. You will not need someone to explain it to you or talk you into believing it is real. You will simply know, the way certainty always arrives, suddenly and completely, erasing every doubt that came before it in a single, unmistakable instant. Picture it for a moment. Picture the exact conversation, the exact message, the exact look that finally says what has been left unsaid for so long. Picture the relief that will flood through you, the moment guessing finally gives way to knowing, the moment interpretation finally gives way to truth spoken plainly. That relief is coming. It may not arrive in the exact form you have been imagining, and it may not arrive in the exact timing you would have chosen, but it is coming, because silence this deliberate, this consistent, this protected, is never silence without a destination. Every quiet glance, every unexplained hesitation, every moment that almost became something more, will finally make sense as pieces of a story that was always leading here, to this exact revelation, at this exact time, in a way that could only have been orchestrated by something far bigger than either of you could have arranged alone. If these words have reached the place in you that has been waiting so patiently, so quietly, for so long, declare it now within yourself. Say, I receive this word. I release my fear of being loved out loud. I trust that tonight carries what it needs to carry. And if you feel heaven confirming something in your spirit as you hear this, comment 777. One more time as your declaration that you are standing ready rather than doubting. Like this message. Share it with someone who has been carrying love in silence for far too long on either side of that silence. Subscribe so that when the fuller word comes, and it is coming soon, you are already here waiting to receive it. Before this closes, let this be a prayer over everything you have been carrying quietly on both sides of this connection. Father, we come to you with hearts that have grown tired of guessing, tired of interpreting silence, tired of wondering whether what we feel is real or imagined. You are the God who sees hidden things before they are spoken, who knows a name before it is ever said out loud, who prepares hearts patiently long before revealing what they have been prepared for. Tonight we ask you to loosen the fear that has kept this truth silent for so long. Give courage to the heart that has been guarding this love, and give patience to the heart that has been waiting to receive it. Let neither of us mistake caution for coldness or timing for rejection. Father, if this connection is truly something you have authored, we ask that you protect it now as the silence begins to break. Remove whatever fear would cause hesitation to turn into permanent retreat. Remove whatever pride would cause pain to turn into unnecessary distance. Give us both the courage to be honest, the patience to allow honesty to unfold at the right pace, and the humility to receive whatever truth is finally spoken with grace rather than panic. Heal whatever, in either of us, still doubts we are worthy of a love spoken plainly rather than only felt quietly. Let this season of silence end not abruptly or clumsily, but with the same care that has clearly gone into protecting it this entire time. Lord, we also ask for protection over our own hearts in this waiting. Guard us from bitterness if the timing feels slower than we would choose. Guard us from despair if the answer looks different than what we imagined. Guard us from settling for less than what you have actually prepared simply because waiting has felt heavy. Teach us to hold hope with open hands rather than clenched fists, trusting that whatever you reveal, whenever you reveal it, will be exactly what both hearts truly need, even if it does not match every detail of what we once pictured. And Lord, however tonight unfolds, let it unfold according to your perfect will rather than our impatient hope. If the name we are waiting for is truly meant to be spoken, let it be spoken clearly and soon. And if there is more preparation still required, give us the grace to trust that preparation rather than resenting it. Let this waiting produce depth rather than bitterness, faith rather than fear, readiness rather than desperation. Surround this connection with your peace tonight, and let whatever has been whispered quietly for so long finally find the courage it needs to be spoken plainly, in your timing, in your way, exactly when both hearts are ready to carry what that truth will mean. May every fear that has kept this silence intact finally lose its grip. May every excuse that has delayed this truth finally run out of reasons to continue. May the courage required to speak plainly finally outweigh the comfort of staying quiet. May both hearts involved in this story find themselves ready at exactly the same time, so that when the words finally come, neither of you is left waiting a moment longer than necessary. And may whatever is revealed tonight or in the nights soon to follow, bring not confusion but clarity, not chaos but peace, not more uncertainty but the settled, steady knowing that this entire season was leading somewhere good all along. In the name of everything holy, we release our grip on control and trust this process completely. You have been loved in silence long enough. Tonight, that silence is finally beginning to break, not because you forced it, not because you demanded it, but because heaven's timing has quietly been building toward exactly this moment all along. Stay present. Stay open. Comment 771. Last time, if you believe, tonight is the night this silence finally starts to speak. And let this be the video you remember as the moment everything began to shift. Because what has been protected in silence for so long is finally ready to be spoken, and you are meant to be here when it finally is.